It was 1955 in the overwhelmingly segregated city of Montgomery, Alabama, when a young girl stood up to make a difference, and her name is lost to many, that shook the foundations of injustice. Before Rosa Parks was the icon of the civil rights movement, there was Claudette Colvin, an extremely courageous 15-year-old girl who was not afraid of anything. Claudette was brought up in a world in which everything was segregated on the basis of race. Schools, stores, drinking fountains, even the benches on a city bus. The blacks were required to sit in the back and stand up in case the front was full in regards to the white passengers. It was right, but it was the law, and Claudette was aware of it. Claudette had been studying Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth in school.
Theirs took courage and kindled her. She would frequently say to herself, "What would they think had they been here today?" That is a question that remained in her heart, and someday she had to ask herself the answer. On March 2nd, 1955, Claudette took a city bus home. Her feet were sore and her brain was crammed with all she had been studying, and she was tired. She sat down in the whites-only section, a place where she could sit as long as there were no white passengers standing. However, a white woman got on, and the bus driver asked Claudette and 3 other black girls to give up their seat. The others arose. Claudette remained sitting down. She was only a teenager. However, she stood up to the driver and told him that it was her constitutional right to be sitting here. "I gave my fare. I am not going." To do that, police officers dragged her off the bus, cuffed her, and sent her to jail. She wept because she wanted her mother to know how it could be wrong to do the right thing. She was accused of breaching the peace, breaking segregation laws, and even attacking an officer, something she did not admit. Some would whisper at school that she was simply out to create trouble. Other people secretly admired her boldness. But Claudette was now a problem to the leaders of the civil rights movement. She was young, poor, and she became pregnant later on, not exactly the picture they needed of the face of a movement. And when Rosa Parks, 9 months later, said she would not quit her seat, it was her story the world listened to. Rosa was older, reputable, and a well-known figure in the community. Shortly after that, the Montgomery bus boycott started, a protest that would last more than a year and alter American history. But the role of Claudette was not finished. In 1956, Claudette Colvin was among the 4 black women to testify in Browder v. Gale, the court case which finally declared bus segregation to be unconstitutional. Her courage in that courtroom, under pressure and against hostile glares, contributed to the abolishment of legal segregation on public transportation in Montgomery. Claudette later relocated to New York City, where she worked as a nurse aide. Her story remained in the background, unmentioned in textbooks or documentaries for decades. However, the reality is obvious. Without Claudette Colvin, the civil rights movement would not have progressed at the time it did. She was only 15 years old. Yet she was strong enough to do what adult men and women were afraid to do. She wrote no when it would have been less trouble to have said nothing. She stood up when others turned a blind eye. She sat in that bus so that generations upon her would stand tall, and now we recall her name, Claudette Colvin. A real hero, a silent revolutionist. A grain of sand that helped start